suddenly the doorbell rings, and I think it was about 9 a.m., and it's the FBI and the Virginia State Police. They walk up to
Mhm.
the door in masks, and I honest to God thought that one of the ladies in the mask was somebody that I worked with in the credit union. I'm like, "Oh, they're they're coming to apologize, right? They're coming to make amends.
We're
Like,
gonna
what's
talk about this, right?
we're gonna talk about this, right?" And I'm not a criminal type. I'm not the type to know how things work, so I let them in my house, and I sit and talk to them for, like, 2.5 hours.
What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own. All right, welcome back. Nightmare Success In and Out listeners, this is where you come for. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share, like this thing out, comment. Really helps the show, and I appreciate it. So who are we talking to today on Nightmare Success? We're talking to Kelly Givens, and I think she is. I came across her on TikTok, believe it or not. I thought that, you know how you just kind of like just randomly scroll, and she popped up, and I thought, wow, she really tells her story well. So I reached out to her, um, and she's doing a lot. So a little bit about Kelly. What happens when a career built on trust ends in a federal conviction? When your identity is stripped overnight from professional to inmate? Today's guest, Kelly Givens, lived that reality. Once working inside a credit union, she found herself on the other side of the system, serving time in federal prison and facing the kind of judgment that doesn't end with the sentence when the sentence does. But instead of hiding from her past, she's doing something most people never would. She's telling the world all about it. Through her TikTok platform, Convicted and Climbing, Kelly is turning her nightmare into a message of survival, accountability, and second chances. This is a story about falling hard and choosing to rebuild out loud. And if you want to check out Convicted and Climbing, she's always got good little takeaways from her story, and it's a fascinating story. I can't wait to jump into all this. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots, looking for a car. Then you spend 4 or 5 hours at the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle of getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you, negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. You know, we talk a lot about the rebuilding after incarceration on this show, finding a job, contributing to community, finding purpose. But I recently came across a book that reframes the entire conversation in a way many haven't considered. It's called Second Chance Economics by Nevin Shetty, and it just debuted as a #1 new release on Amazon. This isn't a book about criminal justice reform. It's a book about economic potential. Shetty starts with an overlooked reality. There are 80 million Americans with a criminal record. That's a massive underutilized talent pool, and one whose barriers to employment cost our economy a staggering 1.2 trillion a year. What I love about this book is the approach. Shetty uses data to show how second chance hiring isn't just a social good, it's a competitive advantage. It lowers turnover, fills labor gaps, and creates a virtuous cycle of growth. Whether you're a business leader, a policymaker, or someone who believes in reframing the narrative around justice impacted individuals, Second Chance Economics is a must read. Pick up your copy today on Amazon. Hello, Kelly Givens. How are you?
Good, how are you, Brent?
I'm good. So, yeah, I want to get into all this about because I know not only are you doing this on TikTok and sharing your story and giving people what I love about what you do is it's so relatable, and I think the more people can relate to people who've gone through what have gone to, they don't have maybe that hardcore prejudging of someone that they don't know. You
Mhm.
know, it gives them maybe a feel for, well, maybe I ought to listen to what that story's about. Maybe I should talk to maybe I should give that somebody a second chance. Maybe I should give them a job. Maybe I should let them live at my apartment, whatever that is. But Kelly, before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Um,
Mhm.
Mom, dad, siblings. What was
Yeah.
life like for you growing up?
So I primarily grew up in Salem, Virginia. Um, my dad was in the Air Force. I was born in Florida, but we quickly moved to this area and didn't have a great childhood. A lot of instability. My dad's an alcoholic.
Moving a lot, probably. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
he was out of the
Oh,
Air
you
Force.
didn't move a lot.
No,
Usually
he
you
did.
do.
Right, he did what he was supposed to do and then left.
Okay.
But just lots of instability with unresolved trauma from both of my parents' life and alcoholism on my dad's side. And uh, so they split up when I was 9, and it was just my mom and I. Um, I didn't do very well in school. And looking back, I'm realizing that that's a lot of undiagnosed attention deficit.
Yeah.
um, but, we just kind of did what we had to do to get by, right? And that's kinda how my job started off with the credit union was,
Doing what you could do to get by. Well,
mm,
was that way all the way through high school? I mean, were
mhm.
you just a kid that was just doing what you had to do to get by? Like, did you have, like, a social circle of people that, you know, or was school just not great?
School was not great. I had a social
Okay.
circle. I had a social circle, and I started working at 14 with a worker's permit,
Okay.
saved up my money, had to buy my own car. We did not have money, when I was growing up, so, um but yeah, I had a social circle, but I never really had anybody to inspire me to do
Mm,
bigger, better things, if that makes
mhm,
sense. So it was just
mhm, not you
get a
didn't have somebody you
job.
looked up to or to mentor
Right.
you or and those type of things. Yeah.
Right. It was just get a job, do the bare minimum, do what you're supposed to do, and, um, yeah, so that's how I ended up with the credit union job. I answered a blind box ad in the paper for a teller
How old
position.
would you have been when
I
that
was
happened?
18. I was 6 months out
Okay.
of high school.
Okay. So you answered this ad for credit union
Mhm.
and you get hired.
Got hired as a teller, worked there for, maybe 3 or 4 years before I got promoted to an administrative assistant. Um, did very, very well. I've always been the teacher's pet type to I want to impress people as much as I can,
Mhm.
um, and did very, very well, and, then also got promoted to, operations manager, and, at that
What
point,
does
my
an
boss
operations manager do in a credit union?
they manage well,
Do they
this is a
manage people or do they manage processes?
processes, not
Yeah.
less people, more processes, but this
Okay.
was a very small credit union, so the operations
Okay.
manager at that point was truly doing most of everything involved. You're talking about card services and the EFT processes and the building maintenance, and there was a lot to do because there were maybe 6 employees total of the whole
Oh,
credit
okay.
bureau.
It was really small. Okay.
Right, very small. Um, and then, um the president at the time, who I had worked with since I started there, she started kind of having some health problems and wanted to step back, and recommended me for the president's role. So this would have been uh, 13 years after I started.
Wow. So you really did move up and stay
Mhm.
there and that became so let's see, would you be in your early 30s then?
I was
13
no,
years
I
from
was
18,
20.
something like I'm bad
Yeah,
with math, so
29, 28. I am too.
yeah.
I think I was 28 or 29. I can't remember. Um,
Okay.
and the board of directors was they trusted the president's opinion
Yeah.
of, recommending me for the position. I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, you're young too. I mean, that the position to the board saying, "Hey, this person gonna be the president of the credit union," would be
Right.
wow. Wow.
Yeah. And I was newly divorced too, so it was kind of a whole change for my whole life. you know? I mean,
Mhm.
everything changed at that point, and, I tried to do the job as best I could with, there's, like, leagues that you can join for the credit union to help out, and it's governed by the NCUA, which is, like, the FDIC for, credit unions. So
Mhm.
I'm on the phone with these people constantly trying to get help left and right. "What do I do? I don't know how to do this. How do I fix this? What do I do?" And,
What
they're
about the
helping me.
president of the bank? Did she hang around at all to try to help you walk through some of the things you needed to do?
She
Or
did. She
which
stepped back in, like, an advisory type role,
okay.
but she was so I love her dearly. I do, to this day, I love her dearly, but she had a hard time letting go of some of the things, and she was
Mhm.
kind of, like, going behind my back and telling me that I was doing stuff wrong, and it was upsetting the board of directors, and they
Mhm.
were telling me, like, "You need to toughen up and tell her not to do this," and I'm not
Mhm.
that person. So she eventually was let go by the board of directors with a severance package kinda thing, and she'd worked there for a long time. But, um, at that point in time, the credit union was failing. We were losing membership each month. Um, we had talked about a merger with another local credit union because we just weren't doing well. So when I got the position, the board is like, "Look, this is it. Like we gotta fix it or we're done." And
Mhm.
so I rebranded, and that was where the media loves to make fun of me for a book that I read that was recommended to me by a league representative. But
Uh,
everything I learned about business, I learned from the Grateful Dead. And I mean, if you know anything about the Grateful Dead, it's, making everyone feel like a family, giving things
oh,
out
yeah.
for free. They
Let
do,
them let 'em record during the concert.
right? And, um, being a part of something bigger. And I'm telling you, I sucked miserably at the accounting side of that job, but man, I could grow that credit union. It worked
Mhm.
really, really well, doing like branded items and having events. We did things like trivia nights, and um, we had a big annual meeting every year, and we would do like big extravagant prizes for the annual meeting. And it went really, really well. Membership was through the roof.
So you were
Loans
a
were
good
flying out the
marketing
door.
person.
Yeah, it did really
Yeah.
well. Um, but in the meantime, as we were growing, I definitely should have hired some form of an accountant or something, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to manage business. I was good at certain aspects of it. I was horrible
You were
with,
bringing in business.
I was bringing in business, but I was horrible at the personnel aspect.
Yeah.
Um, I hired all the wrong people. Um, but, yeah, so I was horrible at the accounting. I was doing what I thought was right with the accounting, and it was just wrong. And my NCUA rep at that point, he was a terribly nice guy, wonderful person, but I
Mhm.
think he was just kind of overlooking everything and just kind of checking off on it. Yeah, you're doing great. At one point, there's a camel rating that they give credit unions. At one point, he had rated us a camel one, which is the best you can get. And meanwhile, I'm horrible at accounting and making so many mistakes and not knowing any of it because I guess he just really wasn't delving into it
Mhm.
very much. So our NCUA rep got switched, and this was 2020, like July 2020.
I'm thinking this person you're saying that's an auditor basically that comes by and
An
checks your work.
auditor, yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean they're there for help, but they also come in and audit
Okay.
annually.
Okay.
Um, so our rep got switched, and the new guy that came in was by the book, and
Mhm.
he immediately saw discrepancies. And I did everything that I could to help them find whatever the discrepancies were. But I'm just explaining, like, this is just how I do this.
Mhm.
Um, so that started the whole deep dive of an audit, if you will. And during that deep dive, where they wanted to look through every single thing, and now looking back, I know it's because they thought I was stealing money.
Mhm.
They thought there was like 1 million, some discrepancy of 1.3 million in accounting. And of course, it looks like this girl, this young CEO, has stolen 1.3 million. So they are digging through everything. And in the course of digging through everything and me getting um, account records and stuff for them, I realize that I have been spending credit union funds on my Amazon account and had no idea. And I can't tell you the feeling of just the absolute stomach sinking feeling of recognizing what I had done, how bad it was, and thinking I'm going to lose my job. Oh my gosh.
Was any of it like, I'm sure that possibly that the credit union had an account, right, for Amazon, like to buy
Yeah,
supplies and stuff like that.
right.
So what more or less happened was is they got crossed over?
Well, I had 2 accounts set up on Amazon. One was personal and one was
Yeah, yeah,
the credit unions, and both billing were the same.
okay.
And I just had no idea. So I got all that added up and it was about $9,000. And it had happened over the course of about 2 years.
But not 1.3 million.
Not 1.3 million, not even close. Um, and when I found it, the first thing I did, I picked up the phone and I called the chairman of my board and I said, "I'm so sorry, but I have to explain this to you. And I know this is terrible and I can pay it back right now." Um, and she's like, "Hey, it's no big deal. No big deal at all. You'll pay it back. Let's tell the rest of the board about it." So I made phone calls to every single board member at that point, and everybody's like, "It's cool. You're amazing at what you do. It's cool." And not to mention, we were going through this extreme audit where we felt like the NCUA was really not being fair to us. And there had been a recent, I want to say it was in Damascus, Virginia. There had been a recent credit union where NCUA went in and shut them down doing the exact same thing. And they had done nothing wrong. They just came in and said, "You guys are insolvent," and shut them down. And we felt like that's what they were doing to us.
Okay.
So the chairman of the board and I were really fighting against some of the strict stuff that was going on, which
Mhm.
now, looking back, made it look like I was trying to hide something, and I absolutely wasn't. So I report that, and I'm in the process of, board meetings, and I've got a check made out to pay that back. And next thing I know, I'm called in and put on administrative leave.
Mm.
And this was August of 2020. And I'll never forget that meeting too. I'm sitting there with 3 of my board members who, I was close with my board. There were board members because I don't know if you've ever tried to form a board of directors, but it's really hard to get people to volunteer their free time for things. So I
Sure.
had, like, my mother-in-law was a retired math teacher. She was on my board of directors. And of course, the board of directors itself is who votes these people in. So you make recommendations and then they have to vote them in. One of my husband's best friends was on our board. He was a finance manager with a car dealership. So they were all, relatable
Mhm.
um, uh, careers that they
Finance,
had been in.
math, accounting, right.
Right. And then another board member was the one of the previous AUSAs
Wow,
in
okay.
Roanoke. So they weren't dummies. A guy was an accountant for our treasurer was the accountant for the U.S. court systems in Memphis.
Sounds like a pretty good board.
It was a great board. Uh, Definitely highly competent people on this board. But anyway, so I'm sitting at our table in the beautiful new office that I've just done with 3 of our board members, and they're telling me, "Look, NCUA wants us to put you on administrative leave. We don't know what's going on." And I go straight into, "All right, here's what we're going to do. My administrative assistant is going to help us with this. They know the accounting side of it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And they're like, "You need to just shut up. You're done. We're not taking your advice. You need to just get out right now." And I was devastated. And they tell me, "You need to hand your phone over." And I
Mm.
didn't think anything of it. I just handed my phone to them. And I went home and told my husband, "I don't know what's going on, but they put me on administrative leave." And, you start talking to people and people go, "That's wrong. They can't do that to you. You should call an attorney." And I did end up calling an employment attorney, and they are drawing up paperwork for wrongful termination and stuff like that. And Meanwhile, about a week later, I got an envelope in the mailbox from FedEx officially firing me after 17 years of working there, a letter in the mail. And the letter said something like, "We're investigating this, and we're not um, we're not fully aware of all of the misdoings that you've done," kind of thing. So of course I'm working with that employment attorney, and they're like, "This looks bad, but I'm not sure what's going on with it." And anyways, nothing else happens from that point on until that. So that's August. Nothing else
Mhm.
happens until January of 2021. And
Mm.
at that point, I've gotten a new job with guaranteed rate mortgage. I'm underwriting mortgages in my house, which was an amazing job, great company to work for. Um, and suddenly the doorbell rings, and I think it was about 9 a.m., and it's the FBI and the Virginia State Police. And the funny thing was, it was still mask time. So they walk up to
Mhm.
the door in masks. And I, honest to God, thought that one of the ladies in the mask was somebody that I worked with in the credit union. I'm like, oh, they're like, they're coming to apologize, right? They're coming to make amends.
Oh, we're
Like,
gonna
what's,
talk about this, right?
we're going to talk about this, right? No, it's the FBI. And I'm not a criminal type. I'm not the type to know how things work. So I let them in my house and I sit and talk to them for like 2.5 hours. And of
Mhm.
course, their spiel is, we want to hear your side of the story. It's time for us to hear your side of the story. And I tell them, from soup to nuts, this is
Mhm.
what we're doing.
Mhm.
And they left. And I have a cousin who is an attorney. She actually is the head of the Innocence Project at UVA Charlottesville. And I call her and she's like, "Oh, you should have never let them in the house." I'm like, "Well, now I know, like, I wouldn't have known that." And she's like, "It's
Right.
okay. You did what everybody, who's not guilty would do." And, um, then
Plus, you just don't know. You know, the
you just
thing of
don't
it
know.
is, and it's something I think we shouldn't just skirt over. You know, I've been doing this show for a long time, and I run into a lot of people who have the exact same one guy was talking the other day, he was an attorney and let
Mhm.
him in. So,
Yeah.
um, I think the immediate thing that people think is, "I wanna help. I wanna
Mhm.
show, I wanna do what you're being a rule follower or whatever." It's like being pulled over by the highway patrol or something. You wanna
Mhm.
help, you wanna be respectful, you wanna be polite. And so people don't automatically put up their defenses, say, I can't talk to you. I don't need,
Mhm.
I need an attorney. Um, but it's the only thing you can do because the only reason that they're wanting to talk to you is to try to entrap you or
Mhm.
get you to say something that adds to their narrative of whatever they're trying to do. Because they've already created, before they ever come talk to you, they've already created a narrative and it's not good for you. So
Right.
you talking is they're trying to grab bits and pieces of it. And the other thing is they don't, those are not taped conversations. Those are notes that they take.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that, I've people don't know. But it's so important for people when they get into that situation to say, "Hey, if they're coming to talk to me, then I need to have a professional talk to the professionals."
Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't make you guilty.
No, no.
It just protects you, period, and I
Right.
know that now. But yeah, so that employment attorney, as soon as I called them, they said, "You gotta get criminal defense attorney right now." And they recommended somebody who ended up being wonderful. Um, and I went and met with him. It was COVID time, so he was sick and it took like a week. And by the time I get in there, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where's this gonna go." And he basically, they're all so calm. It's no big deal. It's not their
Yeah.
life, you know. And he's like, "Well, let me reach out to the AUSA and let's see what's going on." And of course, he reaches out to them and they can neither confirm nor deny if they're investigating me or what's going on. So then it's just more waiting. And mm, nothing happened again for probably another 6 or 8 months. And
Wow.
then,
So you waited 6 months and they showed up at your house. You talked to 'em for
Mhm.
2.5 hours. Another 6 to 8 months goes by with
Right,
nothing. Okay.
right.
Wow. You were living in purgatory.
We just didn't know. I mean, I remember at one point being afraid to be home alone with my son because what if they come to arrest me?
Yeah.
And what are they gonna do? Like, is he gonna have to go to social services or something? So
Well, I mean,
the
the funny that you bring that up, Kelly, because 2 or 3 episodes ago, Ryan Bloom did have that happen. His wife
Mhm,
left the house. He had one of his son was there, and his other 2 kids were gone with the wife, and so they did come and arrest him at his
mhm,
house, and they did leave the little boy inside, and I think he was, like, 8 years old, and then Ryan had to call his dad. Thank goodness he answered the phone to come be with the little boy, and the little boy
mhm.
was hiding in the house when the dad arrived because he was scared to death.
'Cause
He just
because
seen his
the
dad
police.
taken away, and,
Right.
it's hard to believe that those type of things happen, and the other thing that's really hard to believe too is that when they do something like that, I understand, I'll say, somebody's got a gun and he's killed somebody and they've trapped him to this house, and so they take him more or less for the safety of the neighborhood or whatever.
Mhm.
That's not what's going on here with these
No.
situations.
No, they're handcuffing white collar
You're
crimes
right,
and acting like that they're violent, and it's terrible.
and it's intimidating as hell.
It is.
So anyway, 6 to 8 months goes by.
6 to 8
And
months
and
goes
what
by.
do you think what are you thinking, Kelly, in this time period? Now it's been, a year or
Mhm.
more. What what are you and your husband thinking? And you're working, like, what's going through your mind?
We're thinking the absolute worst. We're thinking I'm probably gonna go to prison
Yeah.
and all over a misunderstanding, and at any given moment, there was even a time
Did the
when there.
FBI tell you what they were wanting to did they tell you what they thought was wrong
No,
when they came to your house? Okay. They just wanted you
no,
to tell them your story.
and that was literally all they said, "Tell us your side of the story."
Okay.
That's
Alright.
it. So there was one point we live on a dead end, and there was one point when this dark vehicle was driving by several times a day, and we're paranoid that
Sure.
it's the feds watching our house. Well, it ended up being somebody looking for a lost cat. But you get
Yeah.
so on edge that you can't not think about it. So there's
Right.
a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of therapy.
All
um,
consuming.
it is, and so we lived in that strange purgatory of what's going to happen, and it
Mhm.
was debilitating. It truly was. So the feds contact my attorney and they say, "Hey, we've got a PowerPoint that we want to present to you guys." And my husband couldn't go with me that day, and I asked my sister-in-law to come in to go with me because I'm just scared out of my mind and I don't want to do it by myself. And she says, I can't come. She lives in Raleigh. She said, I can't come, but let's ask Jenny, my cousin that lives in Charlottesville, if she can come. She's the better person anyway. She's the attorney. So she comes with me, and they make her sign in coming into the FBI building with me. They make her sign something saying that she is co-counsel. And I'm sure she had no intentions of wanting to do that at that point, but at that point she became co-counsel.
Mhm.
So they walk you into this room with this huge table, and there's every chair at the table's filled, and they're introducing you as, this is the head of the FBI or whoever it is, and NCUA and Virginia State Police, and all these people are in there for you, for little old $9,000 error you. And there's a screen that says the United States of America versus Kelly Givens.
Mhm.
And it was terrifying. But then when they started the PowerPoint, it almost became comical because the things that they presented, and I don't know if you had to do anything like that. I don't know if
No,
that would
I
have been
never talked
considered
to
a
one
proffer.
FBI agent. I never
Really?
talked to anybody on the other side for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they would have called this other than intimidation.
Mhm.
But the things that they had in it were like text messages, because remember, they have my phone,
Mhm.
text messages that were taken completely out of context, but they were going to use those things against me. And that was their evidence. And at this point, they're telling me that um, my
What are the text
restitution.
messages referring to? It has to do with business
Um,
or
no, it was like my NCUA examiner had said something about um, going down for bad accounting.
Okay.
It was something like that that was taken completely out of context, that had nothing to do with any of this, and but they tried to turn that against me, and at this point, their numbers are 1.3 million in loss, and I'm facing a minimum of, like, 76 months in prison,
Wow.
and this is their offer to me. So and then, of course, you leave and it's like, well, time is of the essence, so you need to think about this now, and
Mhm.
that's their initial plea for
That was
me
your
is
plea is 76 months?
beginning
Yeah.
at 76 months
Yeah.
and 1.3 million in restitution. And my attorney, when we got back to his office, he's laughing. He's like, because he's seen what I'm presenting to him, and he's like, this is
Mhm.
ridiculous. This is ridiculous. There's no way. And he said he would tell me several times throughout the whole process too that he would pull the AUSA aside and say, this isn't a good case. You know what you have is crap, right? And she's like, well, we've spent, at this point, a lot of time investigating this, and we're not willing to give up on it. So that PowerPoint was the starting point of, where they think I'm this criminal mastermind and I've stolen all this money. Another several months go by and they've lowered these amounts. It went from 1.3 million to 300,000 to 168,000. And at no point did I really ever see any breakdown of where they were coming up with these amounts. But when we really got into the plea negotiations, it turned into it was 4 to 24 months prison time with no restitution amount named, and they were going to argue that
Mm.
at
I'm
sentencing.
curious too, Kelly, at all during this time, is this out in the media, the press?
The first thing that came out in the media was when I signed the plea
Okay.
of me pleading guilty
Mhm.
to doing all this, and it actually came out 5 days before my son's birthday, and we had already planned his birthday party, and that birthday party was really awkward.
Mhm.
We live in a small town. It was a huge deal. It
Yeah.
really sucked. Um, and we kept my son in the dark on this the entire time. We didn't tell him until sentencing. Uh, we were able to keep him, pretty sheltered. He didn't know anything about it, and then the minute I was sentenced, we left the, um, courthouse and drove
What ended up being I forget, what ended up being your sentence?
10 months.
10 months. So, um, how and I meant to ask you, how old is your son at this point?
Well, he's 16 now, so it's been 6 years ago, so he's 10.
He was 10 at that point, so he would easily know that something was going on, that
He knew there was tension in the house for
yeah,
sure, but
yeah, yeah,
how do you explain to him how do you explain to a 10-year-old that mommy might go to prison for 76 months, and she might not, but we're
yeah.
not really sure. I mean, we had so much stress on us to
Well,
add
it
that to
was
a child that
quite a come down from 76 months to 10 months and, um, millions of dollars of restitution to whatever the final number was. Let's take a break there because when we get back, I wanna talk about how you went in somewhere, a federal prison, a place you never thought you were gonna be and never
Mhm.
came across that in your mind, how you went into that environment and how you, learned to live in that environment. Folks, I want to share with you a powerful and moving new book you won't want to miss. My Name is Saffron: Voices, Silenced, Stifled, and Taken Away by author Saffron Gustafson. This isn't just a story, it's a journey through resilience, survival, and reclaiming your voice after being silenced for far too long. Saffron's story takes you inside the hidden struggles, the pain, and ultimately the triumph of refusing to be defined by circumstances. As Saffron was putting the finishing touches on her book, the prison she had just been released from, Federal Dublin FCI, was permanently closed because of sexual abuse of the women prisoners. If you've ever wondered what it takes to rise from the darkness of places, to find your truth, and to speak it boldly, this book will inspire you. Pick up your copy of My Name is Saffron today, available now on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Trust me, you'll be moved, challenged, and changed by her story. A lot of people don't like how they show up online Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. There is hope. It's called the Discover Building Company, and they can help you. Whether you're building a reputation from scratch, repairing your search results after a negative news story, Discover Building can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverbuilding.co. It's not .com, it's .co. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off with coupon code Nightmare Success. And the Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I tell you, this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is a great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. It's prisonist.org. So, Kelly, okay, you get this 10-month sentence and your son is 10 years old. How are you dealing with all this?
Everybody always said that we would be relieved once the sentence came because you're not worrying about how long
Well,
it's
you
going
know
to
what
be.
it is. Yeah.
Right. Here it is. This is the worst it's going to be. And my sentence was 10 months and my restitution was 10,000. So
Wow.
it was truly the best outcome that
Yeah.
anyone could have asked for.
Yeah.
Um, and I was still terrified. I didn't even have detention in school. Like I've never been in trouble, never been in
Mhm.
handcuffs. I didn't know how I was going to get through that or how my husband was going to get through that with me being gone.
Mhm.
Um, but we immediately just start trying to find as much information as we can. The judge had recommended Alderson, but I got sentenced or designated to Lexington, which was 6 hours away from home.
Mhm.
So we had initially had this plan of Alderson is less than 2 hours from our house. They'll be there every weekend to see me. To
Mhm.
probably not going to be there every weekend, right? And I'd done all this research on Alderson, and then of course that's not where it ended up being.
That's not
So
where you went.
right, but no, I was terrified, and I went into the prison terrified.
What was your first day like? Everybody remembers. I vividly remember my first day.
Yeah. Um, I got dropped off at noon, and the day that I went in, a lady had escaped
That's not
from the
good
camp by
because they
walking
lock
off.
everybody down when that
So
happens.
the whole women's facility was on lockdown, and I had to stay over at R&D for quite a few hours um, until I guess they got everything secured. I'm sure they were just looking everywhere
Yeah.
and tossing everything that they could. And so, anyways, when I finally got over to the camp, uh, there was a lady waiting for me because I had scared the unit manager. I couldn't stop crying.
Oh,
I was terrified. I don't know any other word for it.
yeah.
And he got one of his favorite inmates to try to talk to me and help me. So
Mhm.
she was waiting for me and she's like, "Hey, you're going to be good. You're going to be safe. I've got you. Everything's fine," which immediately helped, right?
Mhm.
So I kind of made good friends with one of my bunkies. We were similar ages, and she was actually sentenced to a year and a day and had been there a week prior. So our sentences were almost
Yeah.
identical as well.
Yeah. That's
Um,
helpful.
right. So we go outside and she's showing me around, and there's a dog program there. And one of the dogs comes up to me and bites me in the leg.
Oh, no.
And it broke the skin pretty bad. It was bleeding pretty bad. And I had to go to medical, and you can tell they're almost already like, please don't sue us without saying,
Right.
please don't sue us. And they gave me antibiotics, but I was terrified to take any BOP issued medication. Like, I don't know what they're giving me, if they're telling me the truth of what it is. But
Be
I
putting you
had
to
people,
sleep.
right? But I had people or erase my memory. Um,
Right.
I had people tell me, like, look, when those dogs came in, they were from a puppy mill. They were really, really in bad shape. You probably
Yeah.
want to take the antibiotic. So I ended up
Mhm.
taking the antibiotic, and I got asked throughout my sentence. I ended up being there for 7.5 months. I got asked regularly throughout my sentence, "You're not suing the BOP, right?" Like, they didn't believe me. I'm not the type. I don't want to go back to court for anything. No, I'm not going to sue you, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that first day was absolutely miserable. You meet so many people and it's hard to remember all these things and you're just trying to adjust and you can't call home yet because none of the
Right.
phone stuff works that quickly. So you just feel alone surrounded by strangers.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to put that, is it's a very lonely existence, and you're surrounded by a whole bunch of people all the time.
Mhm.
And until you get further into that environment and, one of the things that I was, um 'cause it is a like, I was thinking when I got dropped off and I was looking, I looking back and, I just said goodbye to everybody and now I'm looking forward, and I know that everything I know, everything I love is behind me.
Mhm.
And everything in front of me is the unknown, and I don't
Mhm.
know anything, and I can't stop it. I have to go. There's
You
no
have to go
choice.
forward.
And so and I do think that's, but on the other side of that, Kelly, and I know you found this because we talked about it, but there's so many different people that you meet along this journey inside prison. You're like, wow, but I had this wrong. I
Mhm.
was wrong about this because I mean, the unknown in your mind is always so much worse than what reality is, and
That's
um,
true.
so anyway, you get into the world of prison. Uh, how are you thinking, Kelly, you're going to get through it? Like, do you have a plan? Are you thinking, okay, I got past this point. What's your mindset?
Well, I've never been in a physical altercation with anybody. I've never been hit or hit anyone,
Yeah.
and I had it in my head that there was gonna be a lot of fighting, and there was.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, there was. It's a
Sure.
small
It
building full
happens.
of 300
Yeah.
women,
It's a
right?
primitive environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, but I had it in my head that if I was respectful to everyone and kind of stayed to myself that I was gonna be okay, and that worked out well for me.
Hmm.
I showed everyone respect, I was nice to everyone, even if somebody was acting crazy, like throwing chairs in the chapel, I might say like, "Hey, do you need to talk?" And I did my best to be kind and
Hmm.
understanding, and it worked well for me. So
Yeah, and I think because this show goes out on the Adovo platform to 1,500 prisons and
mhm,
state prisons. And I think one of the things that, and I can't speak to the higher level prisons because I was, at Leavenworth in the camp level, minimum level. But I always tell people when I'm talking to them about when they go into prison that because your immediate worry is just what you're talking about, Kelly, is
mhm,
really bad things are going to happen, and and people do get into fights, and people do have things that happen. But what I found is that however you were received on the outside, how people reacted to you on the outside is how they'll react to you on the inside. If
mhm,
you're somebody that kinda gets in talking smack and doing those type of things on the outside,
mhm,
that's kinda stuff will probably cause issues on the inside, but if you're somebody that generally gets along with people, generally respectful, and don't get into other people's business, you're gonna do just fine, okay in prison.
right.
There's world's not gonna collapse on you.
Yeah, and that was the biggest rule that I saw truly there was, mind your business.
Yeah,
Don't even if you had a meaningless conversation with somebody about what they're gonna eat for breakfast tomorrow, don't
yeah,
repeat it.
yeah,
It's nobody else's business,
yeah.
and because if you repeated anything that anybody said, you're probably gonna get yelled at by somebody, so, um yeah, mind your business, keep to yourself when you need to, but the honest to God truth is there's so many good people
Mhm,
in prison. I mean, I have lifelong friends and I would fly across the country right now for any one of them
mhm.
and do anything I needed to do for any one of them because
Yeah,
when you meet somebody at work, and you see them, maybe a couple hours a week,
right.
whatever. But when you're in prison, you're with
You're not
them.
going anywhere.
You're not going
You're
anywhere. You're
gonna
seeing
see
them
them all
24
day.
hours a day. You're eating
Yeah,
3 meals a day with them.
yeah.
That's your person to hang out with. So you really get to know everyone very quickly. And
Mhm,
they're in the trenches with you. So the friendships that you build from prison situations, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I remember too, even when you get out, I had gotten really close to, Rick Gregg that was we walked together, ate together, did all
Mhm.
all this stuff. Um, and I remember the day I was leaving, I was so excited just to my family was on the other side of this whole thing and that day, and but I remember in the hallway with Rick, I knew he had 2 more years,
Mm, mhm.
and it was like, you almost feel like you're leaving them on a battlefield, and I knew it was gonna so drastically change his life in there, not because I'm such a special guy, mostly because it was part of his routine,
Right.
you know? Everything that was going on was his routine, and routines are such a big thing in prison, and that stayed with me for a while,
Mhm.
when I had gotten out is, "What is Rick doing?" "How's he
Mhm.
doing?" It's just kind of an odd thing.
Well, I still keep in touch with my best friends. One of them got out, but I do remember that feeling of it's almost bittersweet. Of course you wanna go home, of course you miss your family, but you're
Absolutely.
leaving somebody who has and all of the people that I had connected with, for the most part, had lengthy stays.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a terrible feeling, but on my way home from Kentucky, having my phone back, I downloaded Core Links, and I had left my email with, my closest friends there, and as soon as they got me set up, I've talked to them every day since. So,
That's great.
um
Did you have, any issues, before you get out? Did you have any issues of getting out and getting your date and working with your case manager, or did that kind of
Oh,
go
yeah.
the way
Oh, for sure. My original date, so I went in, August 8th, which was 4 years after I had lost my job, and, I was supposed to get out. The initial date that I got was in December. I think it was December 21st, so it would have been right before Christmas,
Mhm.
and that didn't work out. The, RRM came back with, um, March 21st
Mm.
when we had requested December 21st. And
Mhm.
I worked for unit team, so I was close with the case managers, and I'm sure that's why they put that date in for me.
Mhm.
Um, then the next date we tried for was January, and that got denied too. Um, and then it was just stuck with March. So then what ultimately ended up happening was I signed to deny for Halfway House because the Halfway House date was March 21st and my release date was March 7th.
Okay.
So I had to sign to deny it, and it was probably the 1st or something of March, somewhere, when FSA credits post, it was somewhere around the beginning of March, end of February. FSA credits posted, and my date changed from March 7th to March 21st
Mm.
with no explanation. And it was devastating. You're so close
Yeah.
to the door, and now you have to wait, and it's not long.
No, no, but
It's
that
not.
would have been the longest 2 weeks or 3
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
So, um, yeah, and I remember being devastated throughout. I'm gonna miss Thanksgiving already, I'm gonna miss Christmas, and then I'm gonna miss my son's 15th birthday.
Mhm.
It was just devastation each time, and it's best just not to get your hopes up for any date and count on your official release date and never if it comes earlier, then great, but so the camp administrator there, Miss Ely, got involved with the changing of my date, and she fought for them to fix my date back because there was no explanation for why it would have changed.
Mhm.
And the first try got denied, but then she kept pushing for it, and she came to me on March 14th, a week after I should have gotten out. I was cleaning men's visitation. It was about 8 a.m. and said, "You are going home today. You have immediate release." And it was because she was fighting for me
Wow.
to get out of there. And I think she was crying just as hard as I was. It was such a it's just an example of what the BOP does with no
Well,
rhyme or
Kelly,
reason.
how did that work though? You get released that day, there's no
Mhm.
preparation for, like, your family and stuff to come get you. How did you get out of there?
Well, it's so funny because she comes and says, "Hey, you're going home. Come with me to my office and let's call your husband." And you have to wait on the Sally port. And And so it's not nearly as fast as what you think it's gonna be, but, we went to her office, and I called my husband, and I just said, "Honey, Miss Ely got me immediate release. I'm coming home. I need you to come get me." And I swear to you, he just went, "I'm on my way," and hung up. And he was on a work call with his boss at the time. He works from home the majority of the time. And he said, "She's coming home. I gotta go." So
Wow.
he got in the car right then and there and drove 6 hours to come get me.
What was that like once you guys were united?
Oh, it's such a strange thing because, he'd come to visit me twice. He's my
Mhm.
husband, I love him. I'm used to being in his presence, but I mean, you couldn't have knocked the smile off of my face that day, and it's just such a strange feeling to be back out in the world for I don't know about, 90 days in prison or a month in prison or whatever, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter how long you're in there, you're giving up your entire life, you're
Mhm.
surrendering your existence.
Mhm.
So any amount of time that you're in there is difficult to recover from.
Mhm.
So pulling out of that complex, I feel like I'm doing something illegal. And so I get in the car and I'm like, "Go, go, 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 go.
Get out of here before they
Oh, we
change their
gotta get
mind.
out of here. Let's go." Yeah, before they change their mind. Um, and we went and got something to eat, and being in a restaurant is weird.
Mhm.
Having a choice in what you eat is weird.
Mhm.
It takes a lot. And I kinda just remember standing around like, there's this feeling that it's kind of gone away now of I feel like I still smell like prison, I still look like prison, everyone knows I've been to prison.
Yeah.
So, you're just waiting for this judgment that doesn't really happen,
Yeah.
but it's just such
You
an
feel it.
awkward
You feel
moment.
like it's on your skin. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't really wash it off very easily, but yeah, so we
Yeah.
drove home 6 hours. My son was out with his dad at the time, and I ran it they were in, Panda Express, actually, in Blacksburg, Virginia, and I ran in and hugged him. He knew I was on my way home. The original plan was they were gonna come it would have been the following week to
Okay.
pick me up, and he was coming with him, but it was also last minute, he couldn't come.
Right.
So, it's just an insane feeling to be told, "You're going home today." And
Oh,
the
man.
weird thing about my release was the night before, that things you can't explain in life. The night
Mhm.
before, so Thursday night, I thought, I need to write letters to my friends. It was a week in advance. I'm usually not that much of a prepper, but
Mhm.
I sat down and I wrote these letters and had them ready. And when they told me I was going home, I would have never been able to sit and write those letters at that point, but I was able to give them these letters that I'd written, of
That's
"Thank you
fantastic.
so much for everything you've done for me in here, and you mean so much to me, and I'll never forget you, and we're gonna be friends forever," you know? Um, but yeah, and so I had to go back to the camp at that point. I left men's visitation, went back to the camp, and, um, I don't know, when you left, did you give away all your stuff?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
know what that's like. Like, I'm sitting in the floor in front of my locker and hollering like, "Who wants this?" And everybody's like, "I want that." And all these people are like crowded around my room gathering stuff. And I'd actually already made a list too of things that I would give to certain people that needed things. But
Yeah.
I left with nothing. That's not true. I left with like 2 books
Mhm.
and left
Yep.
everything else.
So, let's talk about the whole reentry world because that's
Mhm.
the thing that all of us that go through this that we don't really plan on that so much because we think the hard part is the prison,
Mhm.
and then you get out, and you're like, "I'm so happy to be out," and then all of a sudden it hits you that there's all kinds of barriers, and this sentence that you have that you thought ended at prison goes on for the rest of your life. You just gotta learn to live within it and how
Yeah.
and you can thrive within it. So let's talk about that. How did you reenter? What was your world like when you came home and what you started doing from that point
Yeah.
forward?
Well, I had the therapist there, the psychologist at Lexington had told me that I needed to start preparing for my release because reentry is harder than being in prison. And I
Mhm.
looked at her like she was crazy.
Yeah.
But it's the honest to God's truth. It really is. Reentry is such a difficult thing. Like I said, the stigma, you
Mhm.
feel like everybody knows everything. And in my town, I felt like everybody definitely did know everything. So seeing people out is strange. Even coming home and sleeping in your own bed, it's almost like it's not gonna happen, but you're waiting for the CO to come and put a flashlight in your face, and
Yeah.
it's just such a strange thing to recover from.
Yeah.
But almost as soon as I got home, it was almost like, "God, did that even happen?"
Yeah.
You know, it's just such a strange feeling, and I think that's probably just some sort of defense mechanism to forget it as much as possible, right? So, I had gotten a job, as a job coach. I got laid off with guaranteed rate when the mortgage rates went up, and
Mhm.
I'd found a job as a job coach, and I help people with any sort of boundaries to employment to find and maintain employment. So disabilities, criminal background,
Mhm.
childcare, any kind of boundary,
Mhm.
for getting a job. And I started that job before I ever got sentenced. They knew my background. They knew that I was likely to go to prison, and
Mhm.
they were willing to hold my job for me while I was away, which was
It's
amazing
good
because that
company.
just yeah, amazing company. It
You were
just
very
doesn't get
qualified, though.
well, truly. And that I remember saying that too, like when I get home, I'll understand
Yeah.
a lot of the people out of prison even better.
Yeah.
And that's the
All the
truth.
barriers. Yeah.
Right. So, I came home on the 14th. I went back to work on the 21st. And when I came home, I remember I had cleaned the house really well because my husband and son had been here without me, and my husband used like a leaf blower to sweep. Um, it was just a strain. Anyways, I cleaned the house and tried to get acclimated. My family from Raleigh came in to see me, and it's just such a strange feeling. It's really just indescribable of gratitude
Mhm.
and accepting that it's over. That's a
Mhm.
hard thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I got right back to work, and I found myself with my clients that have been to prison. I share my details sparingly. If I
Mhm.
feel like my story will help someone, or if I could try to make somebody feel better about it, then I will share my story. But for the most part, I really don't
Wh
talk about it very
what
much.
going through this, though, Kelly, you now, have convicted in climbing.
Mhm.
What was the spark for that? What made you decide to live out loud and get in front of your story?
Mhm. Well, I don't know about you, but when I was in that process for a number of years, nobody believed what we were going through. We got
Mhm.
told there's no way she's going to go to prison. This will all get cleared up. There's no way. The government wouldn't do that to anybody. Um, and until you go through it, you don't believe it. And I
Mhm.
wanted to help with that stigma of, you hear somebody's story, you read something in the newspaper, and you can
Right.
read between the lines now of the reality of it, of what the
Mhm.
prosecutors allege and what likely truly happened, right? And there's just so much stigma out there with it that I really wanted to get my story out to help people to understand that I believe them. One, I
Mhm.
believe you, and you can recover from this. And what ended up actually happening was it helped me to recover,
Mhm.
to talk to people that are heading to prison or facing sentencing and being able to walk them through um, what my experience was and comfort people. It was truly helping me to
Yeah, and
recover
you
along.
do a lot of that.
I do. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so great that you do that, Kelly, because people are petrified,
Mhm.
scared into paralysis on the other side, and when they can hear from somebody who's walked through it all
Mhm.
and hear that they're okay. I mean,
Yep.
they're different, but they're okay. There's something that
Mhm.
gives that sharing, having a life experience and then trying to share it to help someone along their journey is a big deal. Really is.
It is.
As far as how that convicted in climbing, and then you have like also groups that you
Mhm.
have and meet. What goes on there?
Well, it's just support. Sometimes
Okay.
it's just talking about funny things that happened in prison. And,
Hmm.
you think that's funny, listen to this one,
Hmm.
right? Because the longer you're in prison, the more zany things happen and the less you can believe what's happening right in front of you,
Hmm.
and the way things are handled and other people's stories or interactions with people. So a lot of it is that. And some of it is, getting resources for somebody. Um,
Right.
they want to know what this prison's like. Do you know anybody that's been to this prison? Or
Mhm.
somebody needs contact for their family needs help. What can they send? How do they send it? So, and a lot of the things that we use for communication with prison, they don't work well. Core Links is difficult to get signed up with. The video visits are difficult to get connected sometimes. And
Mhm.
I send pictures through Pele Post. That's a lot to understand sometimes. So walking people through how to put money on somebody's books or how to schedule a video visit and how to set it up and what
Mhm.
phones are going to work better. It's really just a lot of support for anybody that needs it that has been justice impacted. And, it's just as much, the families are just as much justice impacted as the defendant, right?
Always. I mean, the family goes to prison also. They're just on the
They do.
outside.
They do.
So and I think so much of this employer that you worked for, that they held a
Mhm.
spot for you and then you came back to it because it's kind of like in the Ryan Bloom deal. I just
Mhm.
spoke about him earlier. You know, he had a situation where he had gotten a new job and they said, we're going to stick with you unless something happens and we'll deal with it then. But uh, was such a big deal that you're able to get into a position that you know really well. I mean, you know the
Mhm.
barriers and you're living through barriers and then now you're also taking that and helping other people with the support groups. Your
Mhm.
TikTok channel is fantastic and it is creating so much relatability to people just scrolling. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
wait, she's interesting what she's saying." Kelly, going through all this, what do you think's your biggest takeaway from it?
Oh man. Well, it depends on who I'm talking to. If it's somebody that's facing prison, this
Mhm.
is survivable. It sucks, but it's temporary, but you're going to survive it. Somebody that's outside of it, the right job will come along. You will find somebody that will trust you and believe in you. And the families, just stick with them. They'll be out one day. It's so hard to be honest in some of the situations because sometimes you'll talk to somebody that's going in, and you just want to tell them, "Oh my gosh, it's terrifying," you
Yeah.
know. But that's not the right thing to say, right? Um, it's survivable.
It's survivable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think there is something. I was being interviewed the other day. There was a switch for me.
Hmm.
And there is something that happens, Kelly. I don't, it doesn't matter how long you did time, that you did it. And there's some kind of strange new confidence that comes from that is I survived that. I got through that. I figured that out. It
Hmm.
was like nothing I would have ever thought that I was going to ever experience, and I survived it. I think that stays with you too, and it gives you, you know, when I said you're different when you come out, things like that make it
Hmm.
that your mind is a little bit different as far as how you look at things and see how things can be done or solved or whatever your own mindset. And uh, you wouldn't know that unless you go through what we're talking about here.
Right. But it's strange too, though, right? Because while you feel invincible in some ways, you feel so
Hmm.
damaged in other ways.
Yeah,
So it's, well, I've been to prison, so I can face most anything, but I'm scared to because I've been to
yeah.
prison.
You have a lot of scar tissue, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I love the fact you're standing out in front of the story. I'm a big believer of that. I think that you own the story and, you
Mhm.
know, the narrative gets set out there and it's so much better, I think, for you to own the story, whether you're talking to an employer, whether you're doing an interview, whether you're
Mhm.
at a, you know, little league baseball game, whatever it is, know your story to be able to to be able to be, to relate to people with it so that they can understand and feel it
Mhm.
and
I
in a
agree
way that
wholeheartedly.
it's relatable.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and that's, for any of the people that I've talked to that are going into prison, and they
Mhm.
ask, like, "Well, I don't know if my job's gonna what if they don't let me keep my job while I'm
Mhm.
away?" And I always tell everybody the exact same thing. It's better for them to hear it from you
Yeah.
than to Google your name and read it in the news or to
Mhm.
hear it from somebody else's perspective. And it's a hard conversation to have. I totally understand that. But it's best to just come right out and say it. This is what's happening. If you can hold
Mhm.
my job, I'd appreciate it. Because because I mean, we know how much worse it can get from somebody else's perspective.
That's right. That's right. If people want well, people, looking for Kelly, go to Convicted and Climbing. Any other way to contact you, Kelly?
No, I'm working on a website, but I haven't
Okay.
completed yet, but Convicted and Climbing on TikTok.
Yeah, check that out and follow Kelly. She's always got good stuff. I wanna give a shout out to Homestead Financial. Listen, we use all the fancy lights and cameras here. If you've got home mortgage needs, Greg Aftiev is your guy. Um, if you're looking for a book out there, get mine, Nightmare Success, Loyalty Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free. I know it's a hassle, guys, but if you got time, leave me a review on Apple. I love reading those, helps the show. Go to brinkmassey.com to see what I'm doing. And as I used to say to my people, as I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Kelly Givens, proud of you. You've
Thank
done
you.
it, and you're helping so many people now. It's great. Keep doing it.